You're listening to The Main Event with Zach Gelb and Mike Zahn on WHIP.
To bring us back here on a Monday, Radio Nowhere by The Boss. Zach Gelb and Mike Zahn here with you, taking you up until noon Eastern time, where the Temple Sports Hour will come your way. Eagles get their first win of the season by a score of 24-17 up in New Jersey as they take down the Jets at MetLife Stadium. Defense and special teams dominate the days, and the Eagles' offense is still anemic. So let's go out to the phone lines right now. He's driving back from his show this morning at the Trop, and that's the morning show with Anthony Gargano on 97.5 The Fanatic. And let's welcome in the co-host of that show, and that is Jon Marks. John, Zach, and Mike here on Temple's campus. Thanks for a few minutes. How are you?
Zach and Mike, how you doing, guys?
Well, thank you for coming on. We're doing great. And I was listening to the Baldinger interview today on 97.5 The Fanatic on your morning show, and he called the play calling by Chip Kelly suspect, and he called Sam Bradford awful with his performance in Week 3. And I agree with Baldy 110%. Defense and special teams were awesome yesterday. However, that offense still looks really rough. Do you agree with Brian Baldinger from what he said on your show this morning?
I do. I'm trying to remain positive here because a win is a win is a win is a win. But when I look at what Chip did in the second half, and really in the first half, and everything outside of that Week 1 second half, he's been predictable. He's been blah, right? He's been kind of bland. And what can you say about Sam Bradford? Other than Matt Barkley, he's been the worst quarterback under the Chip Kelly regime. That's Nick Foles, that's Michael Vick, and that's Mark Sanchez. I just see a guy who – I don't know. Is it the same guy I've seen in St. Louis for the last few years, a guy that's very average and not good enough. So I think because of the elite arm that he has, the fact that he's a former number 1 overall pick, some people talked themselves into thinking Sam Bradford was going to be different here. And I guess he still could be because it is only 3 games in. And I'm not ready to pull the plug yet. But if Mark Sanchez is the starting quarterback of this team, are they 1-2? They're at least 1-2. Maybe they're 2-1. So Chip's got to do a lot better, and Sam Bradford's got to do a lot better. You know, Chip said yesterday in the press conference he called it a gritty game. Well, you can take that GR away and put an SH, and that's what kind of game it was from the Eagles' perspective. It was a crap game. It was 2 bad teams playing, and I know the Jets have a good defense. Their offense sucks. So no, I'm not happy after yesterday. A win is a win, but it's still it makes you think that this team's not very good.
I'm with you, and also the NFC East is not very good. So the Eagles are still in it, and they could be 2-2, sitting at 500, even after this bad start as they play the Washington Redskins next week down there in FedEx Field in Maryland. I will say this though about Bradford: he was 14-28 yesterday, 118 yards, 1 touchdown, and 0 interceptions. He looks like he has no confidence. John, is it just rust, or do you think he's just not that good?
I just don't think he's all that good. Can you turn it around? Can he get some confidence? Can Chip Kelly figure out a formula for how to get this guy going? I suppose he can, but let's look at it this way. He's been sacked twice in 3 games. For the most part, he's had a ton of protection from the offensive line, so you can't blame it on that. I know his wide receivers aren't all that great. Nelson Aguilar is the one guy that's supposed to be able to help you outside, but he's been pretty much non-existent. So I get all that. But what have we seen out of Sam Bradford in his however many years in the league that's going to tell you it's going to be any different right here? And I just don't see it. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. So can Chip win despite that? Yeah, he's shown that he can win with kind of average quarterbacks. So we'll see. What you hope is that Bradford gets hot and, you know, the last 4 games of the season he starts to get it and it clicks in his head. But I think what you see is what you get with Bradford.
And the one thing that I really don't have a lot of confidence in is that these quarterback and Sam Bradford and their wide receivers could get on the same page. There's just zero synergy. Yesterday, Matthews was the only wide receiver to catch a football. Why do you think that is? Why are they struggling so much for Bradford to connect with these wide receivers? Because, like you mentioned, going into the year, everyone thought Aguilar was going to be a stud for this team.
Yeah, well, Aguilar was open a couple times. Sam misfired on one. He threw low and kind of behind him on another. Miles Austin just kind of, I don't know what his deal is, and Riley Cooper stinks. So I just don't think your wide receiving core is all that good. Now, with Aguilar, he looks like a rookie, and there's still time for him to turn into something this season. Now, albeit it might be just as in a particular sets or maybe going down the field, but he played the most snaps out of any wide receiver yesterday. He was on the field 93% of the time. So sometimes it does take a little bit of time to get chemistry with these guys, and I think that's, as far as the wide receivers, that's something that you can look at. So I know it's tough. This isn't a marathon like the baseball season. It's also not a sprint, but it's not a marathon. It's 16 games. So as long as you just keep winning games, they have some easy games coming up on the schedule here to where you hope that some chemistry will happen. I think it's twofold with the wide receivers. Not a lot of talent and just not a lot of chemistry right now between the unit.
Putting in double duty after appearing on the morning show with Anthony Gargano on 97.5 The Fanatic. We're talking to Jon Marks. And John, you mentioned about this receiving core isn't that strong and that they really aren't helping out Bradford a ton. You did also mention specifically Miles Austin. I understand the Eagles won yesterday, but what is the thought process in passing to Miles Austin on 4 different third and long opportunities?
I guess there wasn't anybody open. It's really hard to tell. Miles Austin now is playing more snaps than Riley Cooper, and Aguilar's playing, as I said, all over the place. And Josh Huff, inactive with a hamstring injury. I don't know what you can expect out of this guy other than he's just not going to do anything. I just don't know where else you can go right now. And this is a silly statement to make. I'm going to make it anyway, and I know it's not going to happen. It's kind of a sports radio conversation that's been done a million times. But a guy like T.O. would give you more on this team than somebody like Miles Austin or Riley Cooper. At least T.O. I know can get down the field and can make a play. It's not going to happen, and I don't know who's out there on the scrap heap that might help you. I know Reggie Wayne could be available. Unfortunately, I think you just kind of have to bite down and grit and your teeth and just deal with it, and you hope that at some point they develop some chemistry because it's not helping right now.
So you're telling me right now that you want to see T.O. doing sit-ups and push-ups in his driveway and maybe Chip Kelly gives him a call?
Well, I don't think Chip Kelly wants to deal with T.O., and that's one of the reasons he hasn't had a job for a couple of years. But and a lot of people right now are saying, what about Jeremy Maclin? In the long run, it might have been a good idea not to sign Jeremy Maclin. He's making a lot of money. He hasn't had a lot of early success production, and you'd be a better team with Jeremy Maclin on it right now. But bottom line is the guys that you have need to start being productive. And I remember Deshaun Jackson coming in here, and he was a second-round pick because he was a pain in the ass. But right from the get-go, you could tell that kid was a stud. He had great hands. He could get open. He had great instincts. And I'm not seeing that out of Nelson Aguilar so far. So he's your one hope as Aguilar turns into what Maclin was last year, which he can stretch the field. And other than that, you hope that maybe Miles Austin and Josh Huff turn into something. But looks ugly right now with these wide receivers.
Even if there are a lot of question marks on offense, specifically at the receiving core, it seems like a lot of questions were answered with the defense yesterday, and I'm not sure if you saw it, but Kiko Alonso, who is one of the few question marks for the remainder of the season, he's going down to Florida for a double opinion from Dr. James Andrews. Not sure if he requires surgery. How big is it if he does require surgery and then will miss the rest of the season?
Well, I think that you have to look at it right now, and who knows what's going to happen. But if you get anything out of Alonso this season, I'd be surprised, and you take that as a bonus. But you know what I would say? I'd say that Jordan Hicks, if you would have told me that when Kiko Alonso was out, I'd say you're screwed, especially with Kendricks being injured. But Hicks has looked really, really good as a rookie. He can play the pass well. He has some fire with him. He led the team in tackles yesterday. Had a fumble recovery. Also had that interception. So linebacking core. Hey, listen, they're not getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback either, and they paid Brandon Graham a lot of money, and he was semi-productive yesterday, had a pretty good game. But they're not getting the same kind of pressure from the edge. They don't really have an edge pass rusher. Again, Marcus Smith is a first-round draft pick last year. Is a horrendous pick. He's giving you nothing. So the linebacker core as a whole, I think you're solid, and Alonso definitely gave you a different dynamic. But the fact that Hicks, as a rookie, is playing so well, I think it makes it a little bit easier with the fact that Kendricks is out and that you lost Alonso.
Hicks was very impressive yesterday. He was also good in that Cowboys game. He had 7 tackles and a sack in that Cowboys game, and then in the Jets game, he had 10 tackles and 1 interception. Do you think he can continue this? Because it's been really impressive from a rookie standpoint.
Well, you would have to. A lot of times these rookies hit a rookie wall, but it didn't seem like he was phased at all having to come in there. Went to a big program in Texas, so he knows about big games, even though they weren't really good when he was there. But you hope so, because D'Amico Ryans looks every bit of his age coming off of the Achilles injury, and let's face it, he's not a 3-down linebacker at this point. You don't want him out there on passing down, and Hicks can really, really cover. So it'd be nice to have three guys if you get Kendricks back, when you get Kendricks back. But I think this is something you're going to be looking at all year, is how to keep all of these guys healthy at the same time. Hicks will certainly go a long way in helping.
We're wrapping up here with Jon Marks from 97.5 of The Fanatic. And, John, I have to ask you, I know it seems like this next game is a gimme, but do you really think this Redskins game is a gimme in Washington?
I don't. And the early 3-point Eagles being a favorite on the road line would lead you to believe that Vegas is showing a lot of respect to the Eagles, and they are. And Kirk Cousins isn't anything that's going to wow you. But you know what Kirk Cousins can do? He can do a lot more than what Ryan Fitzpatrick did. Listen, I wasn't impressed at the win at all. The defense played well, but Ryan Fitzpatrick stinks. They don't have their starting running back. They didn't have a good starting wide receiver in Eric Decker. And I look at what the Redskins and what do they do well. They have two running backs. Matt Jones is dynamic, and Alfred Morris, it looks like he might be losing his job, but he can still get you carries. And Jordan Reed's a good tight end, and the Eagles have had problems with tight ends in the past. So I think it's going to be a tough game. If you can run the ball and you get better play out of Sam Bradford, yeah, you're going to win the game. But you lost to the Redskins last year in a must-win game down there in FedEx Field. I was there, so I don't think this is an easy win at all. You hope it is, but the Redskins' offense with Kirk Cousins is at least a little bit more solid and not as erratic with RG3. So I do not think this is a gimme. Eagles are an early favorite, and they probably should be, but geez, we'll see how this week plays out with everything.
John, I know Murray was out with that hammy injury, and Matthews had a really good game, 25 attempts for 108 yards. Chip, the Tuesday after the Atlanta Falcons game, did say that Matthews and DeMarco Murray are interchangeable. Do you think we'll see more Matthews? Is there a situation where Matthews could be the starter as the season goes on if DeMarco continues to struggle?
Well, sure. If DeMarco continues to struggle, you may see that. But I honestly think that was Matthews had a good game, had a big fumble. Let's not forget about that. But I think that was a product of the offensive line really playing better and blocking well. I feel like DeMarco Murray could have had an equally or even better game as Matthews had. See, here's part of the problem. You sign three running backs that all need their touches, and I'm not sure you can get all three running backs their touches. Chip, in the NFL in 2015, you don't really place a premium on running backs like you did in the 90s and even the 2000s. And Chip has went from LaShawn McCoy and trying to get rid of him because he made so much money and had a big cap hit to having three guys that are making about $15 million a year this year. So would I expect to see more of Ryan Matthews? Yeah, a little bit, but I don't expect Ryan Matthews to take Murray's job unless he really, really struggles. And at that point, you almost have to put him out there. I'd expect more Sproles like you saw him on Sunday, and then they're going to mix in a little bit of Matthews with probably more Murray.
Sproles was great. I like to call him the Energizer Bunny because whenever that team looks down, just like yesterday, boom, he comes up and has a big play on special teams and gets his third return for the Eagles since he's been here. But Jon Marks from 97.5 The Fanatic, you catch him on the morning show with Anthony Gargano. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it, John.
Anytime, guys. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. There's Jon Marks from the morning show. Always does a great job and is always fun to talk with him. And, man, Sproles, yesterday. That is what he is, man.
He's a difference maker.
Whenever that team looks lifeless, he just gives you that extra punch, boom, and then you feel real great about them. But I agree with John. Ryan Fitzpatrick stinks. Yes, you're happy with what the defense did yesterday, and they kept on getting pressure, and the Jets' offensive line has been good this year. But the Eagles' offense, it's not just Russ with Sam Bradford. He is just not that good. And Eagles fans are finally starting to realize it after they were misled by the preseason and that half up against the Packers. And that's why I always say, you don't put a lot of stock in the preseason. And when it's game speed and the real men are on the field, that's when we're going to see what Sam Bradford's made out of. And he's had zero confidence. He doesn't throw the deep ball. And the play calling has been brutal by this innovative, as I put quotes up in the air, I know you can't see me, offensive genius in Chip Kelly.
Well, this Eagles offense showed what they can do in the preseason, but exactly, it wasn't at game time speed. And also, the reason you can't put stock in preseason is that is when everyone is dusting off that rust, because it's not just Sam Bradford who's finally getting, this starting role in a big time scenario where he's expected to perform, because in St. Louis he wasn't really expected to do what he's expected to do in Philly. He has a lot more weapons in Philly. I think that this is a Sam Bradford that you had in St. Louis, you have in Philly. There's no more rust to get rid of. This is what he is, and you're going to have to accept it. You're going to have to work around it because I think that this is their quarterback for the next couple years.
That Eagles game, and he's only on a 1-year deal. He only has 1 year left on his deal, so they could just
resign him.
They could cut ties with him. No, I get that, but I wouldn't bring him back after what we've seen for the first 3 games. But hey, this is Chip's guy. That's the move he made. He said it's my way or the highway, and right now I just don't like the direction the Eagles are going, even though they can win the NFC East because the Cowboys have been decimated with injuries. The Redskins stink, and the Giants, I'm not big on the Giants, but hey, they could also compete for this NFC East with how weak it has been. The Eagles in that preseason game, it was week 3. The game was played on August 29th. They beat the Packers by a score of 39-26. I'll ask you this question real quickly before we get to Tom Hanslin with the WHIP Sports Update. If they were to replay that game in the regular season next week, what would that final score be?
The regular season game between the Falcons,
no,
you're saying, or
Eagles,
the Packers?
Packers. It was played in the preseason.
Yeah, the Packers game, if they were to play next week...
45-10.
Let's even say it's at Lincoln Financial Field and it's not at Lambeau where Aaron Rodgers doesn't turn over the ball. Yeah, it's not competitive. I'll say that much. They don't need Eddie Lacy. They don't need Jordy Nelson. They'd still take care of business.
All right, here's what we'll do right now. Time in the WHIP studios is 11:47. When we get back, we'll wrap up the show with the live sports update from our very own Tom Hanslin. He's Mike Zahn. I'm Zach Gelb. Here with you on this Monday. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back in 2 minutes.